Hello and welcome to Katrina's Creations. This is day 21 and I am wearing the Bendy Arrow. This is by Charlotte Bory. It is a paid for pattern. I think it's over on Ravelry. This is really soft. I don't remember the yarn I made this with because it's been years ago. I remember I got this up at a yarn store in Rhode Island, in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, I believe. But I don't remember beyond that. So this is what it looks like. It's a unique shaped. It has an arrow, and then partway through at the point here, it bends upward. So there it is. And I'm trying to remember, I think this is the part where you start, and it has like some eyelet lace in here, and then it moves on. So this is done in gray and like a pink kind of color. And it is very soft. So I just don't remember what the yarn was that I made it with. So let's get started today with day number 21. And here is the lighthouse of the day. It's a tall, narrow one. And the yarn for today is Wild Star Fibers Supernova Sock, and it's Rattle the Stars. So there you can see it. It's all different shades of purples, and there's some pink in there and some black. So very, very pretty. So that is day 21. Now today's video that's going to be attached to the end of this is going to be me modifying a sweater. I have a sweater that is out of a chunky yarn. It is James C. Brett, I think, was the maker of it. It's alpaca, and it is kind of this color. It's a little bit more pinkish than this. It's kind of a blush color. And I made it. I think I've worn it twice, and it's huge on me, but it's one sweater I don't want to unravel because the entire front of it is very complicated cables, and I don't want to redo those cables again. So what I'm going to do is show you how I'm taking it apart, because it was sewn in 4 pieces. It was knitted in 4 pieces. It had a front and a back and then the 2 sleeves. And so I'm going to show you how I'm going to modify it without unraveling it. I'm actually going to be using a sewing machine. I'm going to take the sleeves off. I'll tell you the process first. I'm taking the sleeves off, and then I'm going to sew the seams down from the shoulder and the underarm, and I'll leave the opening for the armhole, and I'm going to sew it down and then cut that yarn, and then I will reattach the sleeves so that the sleeves will be up at the shoulder area, so that otherwise they would be a dropped sleeve, and I don't want a dropped sleeve. So you're going to see how I handle that, how I put it together, and how I fix it. So that is going to be today's video. So thanks for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow. Okay, so I am modeling this now so you can see how truly big it really is, and you can see the sleeves are huge. And this is the part I don't want to have to redo because it's very, very detailed. As you can see, I'll turn this around so you can see it even better. This is what the cables look like. So I really don't want to have to redo that. The sleeves themselves just have a cable running down them. So my goal is I'm going to remove the sleeves, and they are seamed right here. You can see it. I'm going to remove the sleeves. I'm not going to redo the neck, but I'm going to take off the sleeves, and then I am going to run the sewing machine down where the shoulder would be, which is almost at the edge of these cables. I'll add a little bit to allow for a seam allowance, and I will, of course, I'm going to have an arm opening here, so this will have to be stitched separate from the back on the sewing machine. And then once I get down here, I will take it in the rest of the way, and then I will go back, and the sleeves actually, I think, come apart. No, did it? Are the seams asleep? Yes, the seams are the sleeves are seamed also, right here. So I can actually take them apart, or I might be able to get away without doing that, because I'm going to need to make this armhole much, much smaller, because my armpit is actually here. It's a good 6 or 7 inches too big here. So by the time I seam this up, and then I will seam the sleeves and take it back into there, and then reattach the sleeves, because they are long enough that I can move it up some and still be fine. I do have extra of this yarn too, so if I do need to make the sleeves a little bit longer, I can do that. So yeah, let's get started at trying to salvage this sweater. Okay, so now to explain what I'm going to do, this is the sweater itself is inside out at this point, and you can see that the edge of the sleeves actually has a curve. It doesn't come straight down. Now, if you remember when I tried this on, my shoulder actually was right about here. But I do want to mimic this slight curve so it fits the sweater better. But of course, I don't need this big of a curve, because when I put it on, it was way too big under the arms, and it was way too big this direction. So I'm actually going to be pinning along here just to mark my spot, and I'm going to come down here and just gradually curve it out like this, and then sew it down. And then once I finish that side, and I'll show you this before I do it, then I will fold this end over so that I make sure that they are matched. So I will check where the pins are on one side and make sure it's the same on the other. So my shoulders and my arms are the same size. I have done that already with the sleeves. Here is the one sleeve right here, and here is the other sleeve. So you can see there's some pins in here. I basically cut off this edge here that made the sleeve way too big. Yeah, I don't need all that. I do have bat wings, but I don't need to fill up the bat wing area here. So I have taken it in about 3 inches per side. So it's actually going to be cutting off about 6 inches of the sleeve, because it's 3 inches here, 3 inches here. And I'm kind of evening it out. It's still going to have a little gradual edge here, so it fits the sleeve to the body of the sweater, where that curvature is, where the armhole is. But you can see that here's a pin here. I've used pins with some color to them. This one's not as bright. And this one right here is almost the same color as the sweater itself. So I'm going to edge this across. And I put the pins in here so I can make sure I keep my place. And then I laid this sleeve over top of it, and I matched where the seams were. And then I could feel the pin from the first layer, and I could make sure that I was getting the same width, because I don't want one sleeve to be deeper than the other sleeve. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine in a minute once I get the pins on the main sweater, and I'll show you that before I go over and sew it. But I'm actually going to sew this seam across here, and then this part of the sweater I'm not touching because it seemed to be fine. So I'm just going to gradually blend it in to this edge, so it'll just have a little bit gentler of a slope coming down. So I will be running that back and forth on the sewing machine several times just to make sure that I catch all of the stitches, and then we'll be real brave and cut it. So right now I'm going to get to work at pinning the body of this together, and I'm going to use the sleeves as a guide as far as once I get this part pinned out. I'm going to place this like this, and you can see that way I know where the sleeve actually ends, so I can make sure I match that curvature to go where this pin is so that the sleeves, the hole matches up to the sleeve itself. So I'm going to work on pinning that, and then I will show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, I have mapped this out basically with the pins along here and then cut into the edge. And if I look where this here is the equivalent of where it was down here, and here is where the sleeve is going to get put in, and the sleeve is set now to end where this pin, because this is going to be cut off, so it will fall right where this goes out. So I've done this on both sides. The pins on this one are on this side because to make sure I matched it, I literally folded it in half, matched the ends up, and then would feel through here to see where the pin was on the other side. So that way I have exact matching points of the sweater, because who wants a lopsided sweater? So now I'm going to take the camera over and I'm going to sew this on the sewing machine, and I'll show you how I do that. We are going to start with the sleeves and find my pins, which are right here. And sorry about the light in here, but I do need the light to be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to be sewing right to the edge here this is where I want the seam to be. So I'm actually going to be sewing right along here to just give me that little teeny bit of extra space. I'm going to go back again just because I prefer to over sew than under sew. I want to make sure I get all of the stitches. Now I'm going to take it through one more time just to be sure, but this time I'm going to remove the pins because the beads are being caught on the presser foot. Alright, so here you can see it's kind of rough this first time. I kept catching, like I said, the bead from the needle, but I've gone back and forth several times. You want to really make sure you don't pull the material or pull your fabric of your yarn like this while you're trying to stitch over it. You want it to go through at its own pace because otherwise you can really stretch out your work. So now that I have this done, I am now going to take the scissors and I'm just cutting along the edge here. I know you're all holding your breath about this time going, no, it's going to rip, but it really doesn't. It is not going to rip back out. You can see it's holding it very well. And that's what it's going to look like on the inside. So it doesn't look any different than if I had just done regular decreases. Oh, and we have a fuzzy. So I'm going to do the same thing to the sleeves and to the main body of the sweater. And I did measure these, and I am going to need to add a little bit to the ribbing here, but it's not a problem because this is where the ribbing, this is where the sweater part, I believe, either started or ended, but I can just pick up stitches here. I might get a weird little rib or ridge, but it does need a little bit longer because I measured it and it comes up about like that, which is an odd length for a sweater, and I want it to be longer, so I will pick up stitches and just make this cuff a little bit longer. That's where I'll make up the difference. So I will show you what it looks like when everything is cut and ready to go to be put back together again. Okay, so I am going to give you a little tip on something. Okay, on the sleeves and on the sides of the sweater, you're sewing double, which is what I have done here. This is going from the underarm down, right from here. But when it comes to the armhole itself, you don't want to sew it double like this because of course you're going to close the armhole up. So at this point I am going to cut under the sleeve. This would be the armpit and below, and then I'm going to be inserting it this way, sliding it into my machine, and actually stitching only one thickness instead of the double thickness in order to keep the armhole open. So I did want to point that out before I get started with doing that. So here is the sweater after a major cut down. You can see I've made the shoulders narrower, and we now have the same shape for the arms. You know, they have that same curvature here that they did before, but it's about 6 inches, 3 inches this direction on both sides shorter, and it's the same over here. And then we have the sleeves, which I have not turned right side out yet. So here are the sleeves that will get reattached right here. Now in actuality, I could actually put these right side facing and sew the sleeves right on with the sewing machine, but I'm not going to. I'm actually going to pick up the stitches, and because I have the seams that I have put right in here, it's not going to unravel. So you can see my stitching right here, and I did triple seam all of the seams just because I'd rather be an overachiever and not have a problem. So when I pick up the stitches, I want to pick up the stitches on the side, not on the raw side. I want to pick it up on this side of the seam, and I can pick up those stitches and put them right with these and pick them up, and we will be fine. So I could just sew it on a machine, but I think I'd rather do it by hand, and then I'm going to add some additional ribbing here so I can pick up some stitches on the ribbing. I could pick it up here and add it this direction normally, but this time I can't because there are different, I don't know if you can see it how well in this, but there are different shaping that was done to these sleeves to make it fit this section, so I don't want to undo that. So rather than fool with having to reshape the sleeve itself, I'm going to just add it to the cuff because we're only talking about 1 inch anyway. So I will come back and show you what it looks like on once I get all this finished. And I'm just wrapping it around as I go to try to get some of the frayed edges. I still have to sew in some of the ends. So that's what it is going to look like. And then when it's flipped inside out,
here's what it looks like. There's the shoulder seam, and this is the cable going down the arm, and there is where I seamed it together.
And now it fits. I'm really happy with how it worked out. No more underarm bags. It actually even holds my bat wings in a little bit. But yes, much, much better. And I was able to keep the cables. The shoulder seam is right where it should be, at my shoulder instead of dropped. So yeah, so here it is. I'm very happy with how it turned out.